Warning: this video is an unsolicited opinion. Any of the facts presented here have not been researched and are open to dispute. Summer 2016 is now over, and whether or not you liked all the blockbuster movies of the year, we can all agree that it's been a roller coaster. From the critical failure of Batman vs. Superman, to the rousing success of Captain America: Civil War, to Suicide Squad somehow making all the money, it's been quite a year in movies. To cap off this wild ride, it's recently been rumored that in the upcoming movie Spider-Man: Homecoming, the actress Zendaya will be playing Mary Jane Watson. And of course, the internet exploded. For those of you who have no idea who Zendaya is, she's a Disney Channel actress who, well, isn't white. People on the internet have since been complaining about how it ignores the source material, since Mary Jane has always been a pale, red-headed girl. This, of course, is also ignoring the original source material of Peter meeting Mary Jane in college, rather than high school. But how can we ignore the pressing matter of race? If you've seen my older video about the Fantastic Four, you'll know my feelings about race changes in comic book movies. I don't care as long as the actor is talented enough to play the role. I honestly am more worried about Zendaya being known for her work on the Disney Channel, rather than her skin tone. But this leads me to ask, how important is the source material to a comic book movie? I'm gonna ignore movies based on literature because that's a whole other can of worms. Instead, let's just focus on works from DC and Marvel. We'll start with the hero who's appeared in the most movies, Batman. Though, warning, I'm not super knowledgeable on Batman, so if I get any facts incorrect, feel free to tell me what an asshole I am in the comics. In Batman vs. Superman, the most common complaint was about how Batman killed people, but then we ignore how Batman killed legitimately in every single movie he's ever been in. Even in The Dark Knight, which is lauded as one of the most important comic book movies of all time, Batman is guilty of killing. The fact of the matter is, if we're going by Bruce Wayne's no-killing policy, then we've never received a faithful on-screen adaptation of Batman, but we can still regard The Dark Knight as one of the best comic movies ever, even if the Joker is less psychotic clown prince of crime and more focused, cold terrorist. We can go back to the 90s and look at the Tim Burton movies, which are still regarded as great films. One thing that bothers me is the fact that Burton has always been dismissive of comic books, going as far to say, I was never a giant comic book fan, but I've always loved the image of Batman and the Joker, as well as anybody who knows me knows that I would never read a comic book. I'm sure I'm taking that out of context, but that sort of attitude would have fans boycotting a movie today. Of course, these movies have issues such as Joker being given a real origin story, which I'm told is totally against comic book rules, and the uselessness of Commissioner Gordon's character. But even with those inconsistencies from the comics, Batman 1989 is probably the most stylistic, visually appealing movie based on a mainstream superhero. And for the sake of us all, let's just ignore the rest of the Batman movies. Next, let's look at Iron Man, which kicked off the current Marvel movie renaissance almost a decade ago. Everybody complains about the drastic changes made to the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and rightly so, but nobody seems to notice changes made to Tony Stark in the first Iron Man movie. Most people love Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Tony Stark. He's the ultimate charming asshole who always has something funny and snarky to say. You can't help but love him, even though he's so full of himself. But this is a huge deviation from the comics. In the source material, Tony Stark isn't charming, he's not funny, and he's not particularly likable. Really, he's just a dull alcoholic. Tony Stark in the comics doesn't have the same devil-may-care attitude he has in the movies. Hell, at some points, like in Civil War, he's actually kind of a hard ass. In the Civil War movie, you can only see a side of things, and he does what he feels he has to in order to keep his team together. In the Civil War comics, he starts to become a villain, and does what he has to in order to make others submit to his will. His core character has been changed in film, and yet we're better off for it. Or take the first Avengers movie, which is my personal favorite. It follows the source material really well, actually, with Loki causing our heroes to band together to stop him. The only major difference being that Ant-Man and the Wasp weren't around in the movie, and they legitimately started the team. Oh, and the weird part where the Hulk joins the circus, maybe that's the best. What about the flip side of the coin? The movies that are universally reviled. People said that the recent Fantastic Four movie deviated too much from the comics, which is actually kind of completely wrong. Fantastic Four was based on the ultimate universe of Marvel Comics, a weird time in their history when they decided they wanted to reboot the stories without affecting the current run of comics. In this regard, Fantastic Four followed the source material pretty well, from the team being much younger to the teleporter experiments and a Doctor Doom being involved in the said projects. Realistically, the main change was Johnny Storm's race, and we can't put the entire blame of this train wreck on Michael B. Jordan. This is a discussion that could go on for hours, but my point is, a movie can follow the comics perfectly and still be bad. Dependence on source material doesn't magically make something good. If you get a bad director, or a studio who has too much stranglehold on the production, or actors who just aren't any good, you're going to get a bad movie. And I used to say, as long as they capture the basic personality of the character, then it was fine. But that's obviously not true when you look at Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark and molding the character to his own image. And let's face it, maybe not following the source material might be a good thing. Most older comic movies are maligned for being too comic booky and cheesy. And I love comics, but they tend to be really cheesy. Who wants a movie about Peter Parker killing Mary Jane with his radioactive sperm, or Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch being in an incestuous relationship? What about Superman adopting Jimmy Olsen and then being an abusive father figure? At the end of the day, maybe moving away from these bad storylines is what we need in comic book movies. What it comes down to is this: good writing, directing, acting, and editing. That's what you need for a good movie. Great source material helps, of course, but one thing to remember is that both DC and Marvel have countless universes universes with countless different versions of every character. Marvel even officially stated that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has its own special universe that's canon with the comics. So with that said, even if a movie doesn't follow a specific storyline 100%, you can justify it by reminding yourself this takes place in a different universe than the original story. And as long as the movie is good and entertaining, then it's okay. So just enjoy the movie, unless, you're watching a movie made by 20th Century Fox.